Journeys Through SpaceTime by James Talisman. Chapter 4: Trouble in Paradise. The royal city of Neferities. It was mid-morning and the sun was already heating up the palace and surrounding city. Thoran came into the queen's sleeping quarters with a tray loaded with fruits and breads, and looked towards Queen Neferities sitting up in her bed. "Here are some items from the chef, my queen. I will fetch some chilled goat's milk and be back soon." Thoran set the tray down on the terrace table and started to leave. "Thank you, Thoran," spoke the queen as her trusted servant left the room. Fully awake now, Queen Neferities began once again pondering the words she heard in her head the night before. "Please continue exploring the teachings you learned so long ago. These teachings will help you fight the coming evil you will face." The queen rose from the luxurious bed, and walked out onto the bedroom terrace. She stared out at the royal city. Those words felt so real. "I must assume that the teachings are those I learned from Master Amati when I was just a girl. 20 years ago." Master Amati stopped their current lesson and looked at the young queen-to-be. "My young and beautiful apprentice, you must always remember that your mind is part of an incredibly vast consciousness that expands across all things. You and I and every other soul are and will always be connected. We are all one." Young Neferities listened intently to his every word. "Master, why is there so much suffering if we are all one?" questioned the young apprentice. "Most do not understand their power and birthright. Ignorance of this divine nature we all possess leads to suffering," replied the master. "I hope someday everyone will see this truth of unity," exclaimed Neferities. "Perhaps they will, my child. Maybe you will even be the source of that truth," said Master Amati as he smiled at his young trainee. "Now off with you, Master-to-be. It is time for your weapons and hand-to-hand combat training." Master Amati gestured for Neferities to go to the training courtyard. As Queen Neferities recalled more fond memories of her training with Master Amati, Thoran came back to the queen's chambers with the chilled goat's milk and set it down on the table. "Excuse me, my queen. Here is the chilled goat's milk to go with your breakfast." Bringing her mind back to the present, Queen Neferities responded, "Thank you, my dear. You can go now." Thoran remained fidgeting in the corner of the terrace. The queen turned and looked at the nervousness on the young woman's otherwise captivating face. "What is it, my dear? What is on your mind?" "I have been told that your brother Aman is back in the royal city and would like to seek counsel with you, my queen," responded Thoran. "A meeting request from my brother. What might this be about?" thought Queen Neferities. "Very well. Let us schedule something for later this evening. Perhaps even for the evening meal," spoke the queen to her most trusted attendant. Queen Neferities had not heard from her older brother since she had placed Aman in charge of the western border of the Isonian Empire. Almost 5 years ago, while meditating, the queen had received strong intuition that Aman was planning a coup against her and her council. Her spies had confirmed the upcoming attempt for control of the throne. Not wanting to imprison or execute her brother, Queen Neferities decided to station Aman as security and liaison leader at the western border. She had also sent one of her most trusted lieutenants to be second in command at the border post. Once breakfast was done, Queen Neferities called for her chariot and guards. After a visit to the royal city's restoration project at the inlet canal to the Great Isophraites River, she met with her council to discuss the various refurbishment projects occurring throughout the royal city of Neferities and the ongoing monument constructions east of the royal city. With the council meeting adjourned, Queen Neferities returned to the palace to meditate and prepare for her brother's arrival. Relaxing once more in her favorite chair on the main terrace, she closed her eyes and mind to all distractions. In the silence of her mind, she went to the inner vortex to seek assistance for the upcoming meeting. Queen Neferities always felt the most secure in the void of her mind. For her, the inner mind was a place of tranquility where anything was possible, and the whole cosmos was there to assist her. She remained in this peaceful state for a while before turning her thoughts to her brother Aman. For some reason, the Queen's intuition concerning her brother failed to give her a strong signal on how to proceed with him. I will need to see and talk with my brother, to try and discern his intent. Then I can meditate further on this matter, thought the Queen as she rose from her seat to get ready for the evening meal and meeting with her brother. Walking into the main dining area, Queen Neferites saw her brother Aman and her trusted lieutenant Thoran, seated at the table with the other guests invited that evening. Jumping up from his seat to greet the Queen, Aman exclaimed, "It is so wonderful to see you, sister. I have missed you so very much." Aman wrapped his arms around Queen Neferites in a tight embrace. Due to the circumstances surrounding their last time together, the Queen was somewhat taken back from Aman's brotherly affection. Doing her best not to show any concern, the Queen smiled back at her brother. "It is so good to see you as well, brother. I hope your journey here went well." "Oh, Thoran and I actually made very good time and the weather was excellent," remarked Aman as he escorted Queen Neferites to her seat. Before the Queen took her seat, Thoran rose to greet Queen Neferites. "I am so honored to see you once again, my Queen." The bronze-skinned and well-built warrior bowed down to her. "Bowing down to me is never necessary. Especially from one of my most trusted friends," said the Queen as she gave Thoran a big hug and kiss on the cheek. Laughter and good conversation ensued as Aman and Thoran told tales of living on the western border, and Queen Neferites told them all about the projects throughout Avaritis and the eastern region. Wishing all her other guests farewell, the Queen motioned for Aman and Thoran to stay. Once all the guests had left and the servants had cleared the table, the Queen asked for more wine so they could all drink and converse it together in private. "So brother, you requested we meet. Was there more you wanted to talk about besides the excellent conversations we had during the meal?" "Yes, in fact there was, my dear sister," Aman replied. After a brief pause, he spoke again. "I feel I have served you and the Isonian Empire well these last years, stationed on the western border. I would like to request a transfer back to the royal city and possibly even become a member of your famous royal council." Slightly taken aback from the recent turn of events, the Queen replied, "I would like some time to think about your request. I will ask Aderan to arrange accommodations for you and Thoran, while I spend a few days pondering your entreaty." "That sounds wonderful. I believe I will go outside now and take in the always splendid evenings here in Avaritis," said Aman before hugging the Queen and heading outside. Just as Thoran was about to also take leave, the Queen grabbed his hand and said, "Thoran, I would love to talk with an old friend further. If that is fine with you." "It would be a pleasure, my Queen," replied Thoran. Smiling coyly at Thoran, Queen Neferites said, "Please give me some time to bathe and change into something more comfortable. One of my assistants will show you to my sleeping chambers later, where we can talk and do whatever else might come to mind." Thoran looked at the Queen and smiled broadly. "I am truly looking forward to that, my beautiful Queen." Thoran bowed down once more before raising back up and staring briefly into Queen Neferites' mesmerizing eyes. When Thoran arrived at the Queen's sleeping chambers, he was immediately enthralled with her beauty. Smelling of articulous blossoms and dressed in a see-through silk nightgown, the Queen's extraordinary physique was a wondrous sight to Thoran's eyes. He walked closer to the beautiful bronze-skinned enchantress. "Neferites, your beauty and presence continue to amaze me." Thoran pulled the Queen in for a tight embrace. Soon, they were both kissing and fondling each other with immense passion, as Thoran began to quickly remove his outer garments. Within a short time, both lovers were stripped of all their clothing and lying together on the Queen's huge bed. As passion continued to rise, the Queen mounted Thoran's engorged member as they began to rhythmically move against each other. Looking into the glowing eyes of the most beautiful creature he had ever seen, Thoran could barely keep from orgasming. There was something special about this woman that Thoran had never truly figured out. She was the only woman who had ever made him feel so alive. After what felt like an eternity for both lovers, Queen Neferities clutched tightly to Thoran's battle-hardened chest muscles as she flung her head back and began to orgasm. Just as the queen began to scream with joy, Thoran too released in ecstasy. As they climaxed together, the tantric union between them could be felt throughout the entire palace. Walking down the dimly lit street towards his destination, Aman stopped and glanced around before ducking through a wooden gate and into the compound beyond the gate entrance. "Are you not concerned the queen's spies might have spotted you coming in here?" asked a low and deep voice from across the courtyard. After walking across the dimly lit courtyard, Aman stopped at the other side and bowed slightly to the tall figure before him. "So good to see you again, highest one. Our queen knows of my devout faith to the gods and devotion to the Illum religion. I trust the gods have been good to you." "The gods and their subjects have indeed been good to the Illum and its holy servants," replied Zorash, current high priest of the Illum. "I talked with the queen this evening, and while she would like time to ponder my supplication, I feel she will grant my request to return and possibly join the royal council." "Commander, that is excellent news. Those events would very much align with the plans of the Illum. Perhaps we could arrange for some companionship tonight?" "That sounds excellent, highest one." With that, the high priest signaled for one of his attendees to go into the royal city and bring back some young male and female consorts for the queen's brother. "Please come inside, Commander. I'll arrange accommodations for the night." "Thank you, highest one." Aman followed the high priest inside. While Aman had always known about the Isonian Empire's main religious organization, he did not truly become involved with the Illum until his exile to the western border. Devastated by the queen's banishment, he started to drink heavily and get into minor altercations with the locals. After yet another rowdy evening at a local drinking establishment, Aman lay on the wooden floor beaten and bloodied from yet another skirmish. Walking through the front doors of the public drinkery, two individuals dressed in priestly robes spotted Aman on the floor and strode towards him. They looked down at the man dressed in an officer's uniform. Squinting up at the two figures dressed in white robes with red overlay at the collars, Aman asked, "What are you two staring at? I don't want to hurt a priest, but I will if you two do not move on and leave me be." "We are actually here to help you, sir," said one of the young male priests. Struggling to his feet and knocking the dirt off his uniform, Aman looked suspiciously at the two young priests. "I have had nothing to do with the Illum since I was a boy. Why would the Illum want anything to do with me? Those who lead the Illum have high regard for you and your unique position. Perhaps you could come with us to the local sanctuary, where our leader can explain further." Nodding agreement, Aman began to follow the two priests out. Before the three had reached the door, 4 local men stepped in front of Aman and the priests to block their passage from the pub. "This horse's ass owes the owner of this establishment money. He will not be allowed to leave until he has paid his debt," said one of the 4 men. Reaching into his satchel, one of the young priests pulled out some local currency and offered it to the man. "I suspect this should more than cover this man's debt, and any damages he might have caused tonight. If the owner needs more, I can personally guarantee the Illum will provide whatever may be needed." "I respect the Illum, but I am afraid this man will need to pay with a little more blood before he can leave," said the biggest of the 4 locals as he smiled at the priests and Aman. With that, the young priest put the currency in his hand down on a nearby table and glanced at the other priest. Within seconds, all 4 of the burly men who had confronted the much smaller priests were lying unconscious on the floor. Aman had never seen such fighting skills before as he witnessed the 2 small priests dispatch the 4 huge men like they were mere children. Extremely quick hand and foot strikes rained upon the 4 locals in a series of moves that ended the encounter before it had even begun. Amazed, Aman stammered at the 2 priests who showed no signs of even being in a fight. "I have never seen such fighting skills." Can the Illume show me how to fight like that? The Illume can indeed teach you how to defend yourself and even more, answered one of the priests as they all walked out of the tavern and into the street. After their incredible sexual encounter, both Queen Neferites and Thoran lay snuggled together on the queen's bed. Hearing a noise outside her sleeping chambers, she called out, "Aderin, is that you?" "It is, my queen. I have secured quarters for your brother and the lieutenant. Your brother has not yet returned to the palace. I am sure Aman can find a place to rest his head this night, and the lieutenant can stay here with me this night," called out the queen. "As you wish, my queen. I will make sure there is enough food for 2 in the morning." "Thank you, my dear. Please retire yourself for the night, and I will see you in the morning." Leaning over to kiss Thoran, Queen Neferites smiled at the powerful warrior lying in her bed and exclaimed, "That brief interlude has recharged my energy. Perhaps we should take up where we left off earlier." "As you wish, my queen," spoke Thoran as he lovingly pulled the queen over and proceeded to position himself on top of Queen Neferites' tantalizing and willing body. After waking up from an astonishing night, both the queen and Thoran were brought a fabulous breakfast from the kitchen. Sitting at the table on the terrace outside her sleeping chambers, Queen Neferites smiled at Thoran and said, "I am going to the northern expanse outside the city today to inspect the progress on one of my personal projects. Perhaps you could escort me there today." "I would enjoy that, my queen," replied Thoran. As the queen's chariot approached the open area north of the royal city, Thoran gazed upon structures he had never witnessed before. Rising over 100 feet in the air, these strangely shaped formations of granite blocks were composed of a large base with 4 triangular sides that all met at a point on top. On one of the triangular sides was a rectangular doorway opening into each of the 4 structures currently built at the site. The queen's chariot stopped near the 4 massive granite structures. Stepping off the chariot, Queen Neferites motioned for Thoran to follow her inside one of the structures. Walking through the passageway behind the queen, Thoran was amazed by what he witnessed. The inner chamber of this structure had smooth white granite walls on all 4 sides that rose at an angle meeting at the top to form a point in the middle of the vast chamber. Directly below this top point on the floor was a beautifully carved seat made from a darker granite, with an intricate pattern of white lines and strange lettering running throughout the stone. Moving towards the seat and running his hands over the smooth granite, Thoran looked towards the queen with eyes wide. "This place is amazing. What is its purpose?" "These structures are called pyramids. Their purpose is for channeling energy. This particular structure was built specifically for me," replied Queen Neferites. "How did you ever learn of these pyramid structures?" "They were first introduced to me many years ago by my teacher," she answered as she began to recall her first time experiencing the power of the pyramid. 15 years ago. "My dear apprentice, your studies have been going very well. I believe it is time to expand upon what you have been learning," spoke Master Amati to his young and beautiful student. "Your father, the king, has granted my request to show you something extraordinary. The journey will take a week, but I feel it will be a valuable lesson. We will leave first thing in the morning, so go on and get ready." "Yes, master. I will go now," exclaimed the excited Neferites as she spun around and rushed off to the palace. Due to her extremely curious nature, Neferites always enjoyed exploring the Isonian Empire and the surrounding lands, whenever she was allowed. As she hoped, the journey to these new lands with Master Amati and some of King Solomete's guardsmen had been exciting and enlightening. As they rode their horses and camped along the way, Master Amati continued to teach his young disciple on the structure of reality and how to use the power of the energy that composed this reality to achieve goals and desires, while even manipulating reality itself. After the week's journey, they came upon what was called the Land of the Enlightened. Riding into a valley with huge mountains surrounding it, Neferites was in awe at the sight before her. Standing over 400 feet in height were two massive pyramidal structures made from local granite stone carved from the surrounding mountains. "What are those amazing things, Master?" shouted Neferities as she dismounted from her horse and gazed at the strange but incredible structures. "These structures are called pyramids. These particular structures have been built to house very ancient esoteric knowledge. Along with the ancient wisdom they contain, they also have another function. Due to their unique shape, these pyramids can channel the powerful energies we have been talking about on our way here." Motioning for Neferities to follow him, Master Amati walked inside an opening to one of the pyramids. Following her teacher, Neferities was enthralled with the sight before her. In the middle of the vast open chamber was a granite chair with tunnels leading off in multiple directions. "Where do all those tunnels go?" asked Neferities. "They lead to other smaller chambers that contain ancient writings on both the chamber walls and on parchments stored in each chamber. We will explore some of those tunnels later, but right now I want you to experience something unique and powerful." The master pointed towards the granite chair. "Please take a seat on that chair and close your eyes." Excited to explore a new experience, Neferities ran over and sat in the huge stone seat. "Now with your eyes closed, start to clear your mind of all thought and move your attention to the void of your mind as we have worked on before." Clearing her mind and focusing her attention on the void of her mind, Neferities suddenly felt an electrifying current run from the floor where her feet rested, and then up through her body and out through the top of her head. As this powerful energy ran through her, she was transported into what felt like a whole new reality. Incredibly bright colors and exquisite designs swirled about her awareness and produced amazing feelings of utter joy and happiness. In this new world, Neferities felt connected to everything and everyone. No separation at all could be felt, as her mind and body took in this special energy of oneness. After what felt like an eternity, Neferities' mind slowly came back to her previous reality in the immense chamber. "Master, I have never experienced such bliss," exclaimed Neferities as she jumped off the chair and ran over to hug her teacher. "You have just experienced the all that is, dear one. This experience has now added to your previous lessons, and will help you grasp even more of the ancient wisdom as we move forward with your studies." Coming back to the present, Queen Neferities excitedly extolled her memories to Thoran. "That is truly an amazing story. How fortunate to have such a wise teacher. Is Master Amati still around?" "My master is truly timeless and is always available if I need him. I would truly love to meet Master Amati. Perhaps that can be arranged sometime. Let me show you a little more before we head back to the palace." The queen excitedly grabbed Thoran's hand and led him outside. Entangled in the young male and female bodies surrounding him in the huge bed, a smile came over Aman's face as he recalled the sexual orgy from the previous night. As was the case for many of the Illum's top leadership, Aman's sexual appetite was both diverse and all-consuming. Lying on the floor of the bedroom was a testament to that fact. On the floor laid the naked dead body of one of the young males brought to the Illum sanctuary. As his eyes spotted the body on the floor, Aman began to remember the events leading to the young man's demise. To enhance the young consort's pleasure from Aman's thrusts from behind, Aman had wrapped both of his hands around the young male's neck and began to lightly squeeze to restrict airflow to the young man's lungs. As Aman continued to impale himself into his willing partner's backside, his grip on the young consort's neck tightened more with each thrust. Soon the young man began to struggle from Aman's clenched hands. This only made Aman tighten his grip further. Just as Aman grunted loudly and violently orgasmed, the young male body in his grip went limp from lack of air. A shriek went out from one of the female consorts who witnessed the event. Aman assured her that the young man had just passed out and would be okay, but he knew inside that the young man would not wake up. Walking into the room and spotting the young man on the floor, the high priest spoke in a low voice to Aman, "I will send some help to move him before they all wake up." Please meet me in my office after you have cleaned up and had some breakfast. Thank you again, highest one, for a wonderful evening, said Aman in a low voice. The high priest lowered his head and nodded, before turning and walking out of the room. After talking with the high priest later that morning, Aman nodded and turned to leave the office and head back to the palace. Once at the palace, Aman spotted Thoran and exclaimed, "My sister has definitely found a most stunning assistant in you, my dear." Flustered and somewhat scared, Thoran said, "I have secured quarters for you as the queen requested. If you will follow me, I can show you to the cottage." Opening the door to the cottage, Aman asked Thoran, "Perhaps you would like to show me the cottage in more detail inside?" "I am sorry, Commander, but my duties are many, and I must leave now to attend to them." The queen and the lieutenant went out for a while but should return soon, stuttered Thoran as she turned to leave. "Very well. Perhaps another time," said Aman as he lightly ran his hand over Thoran's bottom. The young assistant hurriedly walked away. Aman lay on the bed with his eyes closed as he waited for the queen's and Thoran's return. He was slightly startled by the voice in his head. A red-faced demon with black eyes and horns protruding from its forehead appeared in his mind. "You have been a faithful servant for our cause. I am pleased. Master, it is such an honor to commune with you once more. It is now time to take what is rightly yours. Let us go over the plan to achieve your destiny." After receiving all the details to his master's plan, Aman opened his eyes and nodded to himself as a wicked smile came over his face.